Hello students, welcome to Install's English class, where we believe in democratizing education for all. Alright everyone, let me ask you this. Have you ever said something like, I can swim, you must study, or may I come in? If you have, you've already used modal auxiliaries, probably without even realizing it. Now picture this, your friend says, you must wear a helmet. Sounds strict, right? That word must show it's not just advice, it's a rule. Modal auxiliaries like can, should, may, or must don't show actions, but they completely change how we understand the action. They help us talk about what's possible, what's necessary, and what's allowed. Let's get started and see how these simple words add strength to our sentences. Let's begin by understanding what are modal auxiliaries. These are not action words themselves, but they play a powerful role in guiding how the main action is understood. They help the main verb express mood, intention, or attitude. That means they tell us how the speaker feels about the action, whether it's certain, allowed, or necessary. Along with that, modals modify the meaning of the main verb. For example, she sings and she must sing don't mean the same thing. The modal adds force or feeling. Lastly, they add specific meaning to the sentence, making the message clearer, more precise, and more expressive. Now, let's move on to where modals are used. You'll find them all around you in everyday language. First of all, they are used for ability, duty, need, necessity, or permission. Whether you say, I can swim, or you must attend the meeting, a modal is helping you do that. Also, modals are one type of the 12 auxiliary verbs in English. These auxiliaries support the main verb but are different from verbs like is, am, or have. Next, modals indicate if an action is possible, necessary, or allowed. This is what makes them so useful. They don't just state facts, they guide how we understand the facts. And finally, they help form the tense, voice, and mood. For example, using will shows future tense, should shows advice, and both affect the tone of your sentence. Let's now take a quick look at some of the most common modal auxiliaries. Words like shall, should, will, would, may, might, can, could, must, ought to, used to, and dare to. These are all modal verbs. Each of them carries its own specific meaning. Some show possibility, like might, some show ability, like can, and others show obligation, like must. We'll learn how to use each of these in different contexts as we move forward. Let's take a closer look at the characteristics of modal auxiliaries and what makes them so different from regular verbs. First things first, modals are always followed by the root form of the main verb. That means the verb right after a modal stays unchanged. For example, we say, she can go, not she can goes, or she can went. The base form is a must. Now here's something really unique. Modals have the same form for all subjects. It doesn't matter if you're talking about I, he, or they. Example, I can, he can, or they can. The modal never changes. You'll never have to worry about adding an S for third person like we do with normal verbs. Next, modals do not take ing or infinitive or the ed forms. So we don't say things like to must or musting. Those forms just don't exist in English as they help form the tense. Another important grammar point, modal verbs never take tense endings like ed. You can't say musted, shoulded, or canned. Modals remain in their original form no matter the tense. And one last point to remember, modals work independently without other helping verbs. They are helping verbs themselves, so they don't need another one next to them. You won't see is must or does should. That's incorrect. Another point to note, modals do not use the auxiliary do or does while framing questions or negatives. You don't say, does he can swim? You simply say, can he swim? And for negatives, it's not he doesn't can sing. It's he cannot sing. Much simpler, right? So in short, modals are direct and consistent and powerful. They follow their own rules, and once you know them, using them becomes super easy. Let's now take a moment to compare modal auxiliaries with normal verbs side by side. This chart shows exactly how they differ in structure and usage. Starting with how the verbs appear in a sentence. Modal auxiliaries are always followed by the base form of the verb. That means after a modal like can or should, the main verb stays in its original form, like go or study. In comparison, normal verbs change form based on tense and subject. For example, go becomes went, write becomes wrote, and so on. When it comes to subject-verb agreement, here's another difference. Modals do not add s for singular subjects. So, do we say he can run? No, we say he can run. Notice that can is the auxiliary and run is the verb in its base form. But with normal verbs, this change is required. Normal verbs do add s for third person singular. You say, he sings, she plays. That little s makes a big difference because the verb agrees with the subject. This pattern continues in a question formation as well. There's no need to use do or does with modals because a modal does not require another modal. We can directly ask, can you swim? Whereas for regular verbs, the helping verb becomes necessary. We need do or does to form questions like, do you sing? Or does he work? The same idea applies when we form negative sentences. Modals form negatives using words like cannot or must not. No extra helping verb is needed. But with normal verbs, you'll notice that normal verbs use do not or does not, such as she does not sing or I do not run. Another area where they differ is in how they form other verb structures. Modals do not take forms like to can or musting. You'll never hear to may or shoulding. These are grammatically incorrect. However, grammatically, normal verbs are regularly used in the infinitive and the continuous forms, like to eat or eating. Lastly, we come to their purpose. Modals express mood, possibility, necessity, or advice. They express attitude or shades of meaning beyond the basic verb action. They shape the tone of the sentence, how the speaker feels about it, and the action itself. Meanwhile, normal verbs describe the actual action or state of being, such as run, sleep, feel, or exist. So, when you look at both side by side, it's clear. Modals and normal verbs serve different roles in a sentence, and learning this difference helps you write and speak more accurately. Now that we've seen how modal auxiliaries function, let's go over some important rules of using modals that often get overlooked. First, modals do not show the tense by themselves but help frame them. You won't find the past, the present, or the future forms of the modals. Instead, we use the context or other verbs to show time. For example, he could sing shows past ability, while she will sing allows future intention. Next, it's important to know that modals can express different meanings depending on the context. Take can for instance. Can means ability in I can swim or permission in can I leave early. Similarly, must means necessity. Sometimes modals need alternatives. That's because some modals have substitute phrases. When we can't use the modal directly, we replace it. For example, have to can be used instead of must. So I have to finish this is the same as I must finish this. However, must is often used for obligations. The speaker feels internally, while have to is used for external obligations imposed by others or rules. Also, modals are not used alone. They always need a main verb to complete the meaning. Saying you should is incomplete. It only makes sense when we say you should eat or you should study. And finally, two modals do not appear together in standard grammar. You should never write she can must go. That's incorrect. Just use one. She must go or she can go, but not both. Let's now understand how modal auxiliaries actually work inside a sentence. The structure is simple. You start with the subject S. Then place the modal M and finally follow it with the main verb we. And here's what's interesting about modals. They follow their own grammar rules. First of all, they do not accept conjugation. That means you never add S, ed or ing to a modal verb. For example, you can't say cans, mustard or shoulding. The modal stays the original form, no matter who the subject is. Along with that, they do not need other auxiliary verbs. You won't need do, does or did before modals to form questions or negatives. The modal itself acts as the helping verb. Take this sentence for example. Mary could play the piano. Here could is the modal. There's no change in the verb play and no extra helping verb is needed. That's exactly how modals function. Direct, simple and consistent. So once you know the subject, modal and verb pattern, you can use modals correctly across different sentences and situations. Let's begin with the most familiar modals, can and could. The word can is often used in everyday conversations. It indicates possibility, ability, permission or request. For example, I can swim. That means I have the ability to swim. But we can also use can in other situations. For instance, can you help me with this task? This is a polite request. Or, it can rain in April. Here it shows possibility. Now, when we move to could, we are usually talking about the past. Could shows past ability, possibility or polite request. Let's look at the example. Could you pass the salt? That's a polite request. But we can also say, she could read when she was 4. That tells us about an ability in the past. Moving ahead, let's now explore the modals may and might. Starting with may. It refers to the present and is used for permission, possibility, wishes, purpose or concession. Take a look at this sentence. You may leave early. This shows permission. We also say she may be late. Here may shows possibility. And when we say may you succeed in life, we're expressing a wish. Next is might, which is quite similar to may, but it's used for past or when the chance is weaker. It is used for permission, possibility, wishes, purpose or concession in the past. Let's read the sentence. It might rain later. That's a possibility, but we are not very sure. Another example could be he might have left already. Again, showing uncertainty in the past. Now, let's understand modals that express duty or necessity. First is must. It indicates obligation, necessity, prohibition, compulsion or certainty. For instance, you must wear a seatbelt. That's a necessity and a rule. Another use could be you must not touch the wires. This is prohibition and it must be true. Here must expresses certainty. Then we have should, which is slightly softer than must. It indicates obligation, advice, capability, necessity or expectation. Take this example. You should eat healthy food. It's a suggestion or advice. You can also say she should be home by now. That's an expectation. Let's now look at modals related to the future. We begin with will. It indicates willingness, intention, prediction, request or future certainty. Here's an example. I will visit you tomorrow. That's a promise or intention. We could also say it will snow in December, a prediction based on past patterns. Now look at shall. It's slightly formal and indicates futurity, intention, willingness, suggestion or advice. Like in this example, shall we dance? It's a suggestion. Another example, you shall receive your reward. This shows a strong future certainty. Next is would, which helps us talk about polite expressions, past habits and imaginary conditions. It is used for polite requests, habitual action, past, hypothetical situations. For example, I would buy a car but I haven't got the money. That's a hypothetical case. We also use would to describe old routines. He would walk to school every day. Or to make polite requests like, would you mind opening the window? Next on our list is ought to. It's used when we talk about what's morally right. It indicates moral obligation, duty, necessity, or desirability. Let's read the example. You ought to apologize. That's a moral suggestion. It can also be used for expectations. She ought to be here by now, which means we expect her to arrive. Now, let's talk about two more important modals, used to and need to. Used to refers to habits or actions that were regular in the past but no longer happen. In other words, it shows a past discontinued action. Like in the sentence, we used to visit the market daily. Compare that with need to, which expresses something necessary. It shows necessity or need. Example, you need to look into it. This means the task requires your attention. Finally, let's end with a bold one. Dare to. This modal expresses challenge or courage. Let's see the examples. He cannot dare to defy you. Will she dare to write such a letter? These show courage or a bold challenge depending on the situation. Now that we've looked at how modal verbs help express ability, permission, obligation, and possibility, let's see how they change when we need to say no. That is, they are negative forms. We have both long form and short form versions for each modal. Let's start from the top of the chart. The modal can becomes cannot in the long form and can't in short form. For example, she can't come to the party. Could becomes could not and the short form is couldn't. Like, he couldn't solve the puzzle. Next, may turns into may not, but notice there's no short form for it. For example, you may not enter without a pass. Might changes to might not and the short version is mightn't, though the short form is rarely used in modern English. We can say it might not be true. Now, ought to becomes ought not to in long form and oughtn't to in short. For instance, you ought not to lie. Coming to should, it becomes should not and shouldn't. For example, you shouldn't skip breakfast. For future modals, will becomes will not and the short form is won't. We often say I won't forget this. And finally, would becomes would not and its contraction is wouldn't. For example, they wouldn't listen. As for the positive short forms, notice that should and would have contractions like D, as in he'd go, meaning he would go, and LL for will, as in she'll call, meaning she will call. Understanding these forms will help us speak more naturally and clearly in both written and spoken English, especially when expressing refusal, uncertainty, or polite disagreement. Now, it's time to test our understanding with some practice. Let's fill in the blanks with the correct modal auxiliary. Choose wisely based on the function required: advice, permission, possibility, or necessity. You blank study harder to pass. The right choice is should because it gives advice. So you should study harder to pass. Next, blank, I use your phone? We are asking for permission here, so may fits best. May I use your phone? Now, we blank go to the movies later? This shows possibility, so might is correct. We might go to the movies later. How about you blank finish your assignment on time? This is a necessity, so must is the right choice. You must finish your assignment on time. Here's another one. Blank, I leave early today. This is a polite permission request, so may works perfectly. May I leave early today? Now, she blank speak French fluently when she was younger. This is about past ability, so could is the answer. She could speak French fluently when she was younger. Finally, we blank go to the park if it doesn't rain. This talks about possibility, so we choose might. We might go to the park if it doesn't rain. Here are a few more sentences. My son blank be home by now. Where can he be? We expect him to be home, so the correct modal is should. My son should be home by now. Next, I think your thumb is broken. You blank go to the emergency room. This is strong advice, so we say ought to. You ought to go to the emergency room. Last one here. If you are interested in losing weight, you blank try this new diet. This is a suggestion or a possibility, so could fits best. You could try this new diet. Let's see this one. Johnny's fallen down the stairs. I blank call an ambulance. Urgent action needs will. I will call an ambulance. And this one. You blank come too early. We won't leave until 9 o'clock. Here it's not necessary, so needn't is correct. You needn't come too early. Rewrite this. I suggest that you get a good lawyer. You should get a good lawyer because should is used to give advice. Next, a university degree isn't necessary for that job. You needn't have a university degree for that job. Needn't have shows lack of necessity. Try this one. Perhaps my father will pick you up. My father may pick you up. May shows possibility here. Last one. Eating is forbidden in class. You mustn't eat in class. Mustn't expresses prohibition. Let's switch on the Insta lights and highlight the key takeaways. We first saw how modal auxiliaries express ability, possibility, permission, advice and necessity. They shape the intent behind what we say. Then we learned that they are always followed by the base form of the main verb, no matter what the subject is. Unlike regular verbs, they do not change form with subject or tense, which keeps things simple. For negatives, we simply add not without do or does, like cannot, shouldn't or must not. We also discovered that while modals have fixed forms, they can be substituted depending on the context. Have to can replace must, for example. And through all this, we understood that modals modify the meaning and tone of the main verb, helping us sound clearer, more polite, or firmer. Stay tuned for more engaging lessons from Install. Goodbye.